Hi, friends. We are doing things a little different here on the podcast today because a few weeks ago I had the absolute honor of being a part of Purely Aligned, which is a podcast by my friend Melissa Machat. And we had one of the most activating and transformational conversations. And I just wanted to be able to share it here with you guys. It was such a powerful conversation, and I've thought about it so much since. So, with Melissa's permission, we get to have it here on the No Bullshit Manifestation Show as well. And in this conversation, we really dive into a lot of misconceptions that people experience when it comes to manifestation, as well as some really tangible steps that you can take to create the abundance that you desire in your life, starting from your internal world, and just go so deep into what it means to actually be the embodiment of your manifestations, as well as how to activate that feminine energy inside of you to create the level of trust and faith in the fact that your manifestations are playing out and that you can really lean back and relax into that. But I just wanted to say that if you are looking for some more really powerful conversations like this one that I have with Melissa, you definitely want to check out her podcast, which is called Purely Aligned. You can check it out down below in the show notes. And if you enjoy this conversation, definitely be sure to screenshot it and tag me and Melissa over on Instagram so that we can both thank you for listening to the podcast and share it with the world. But without further ado, let's get into this podcast episode. I hope you enjoy it. What's up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, the podcast that demystifies all of the nonsense that surrounds manifestation and gives you a realistic view of what it's like to be on a personal, professional, and spiritual growth journey. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation and money mindset expert, and I'm so happy you're here. Let's fucking do this thing.
Have you ever heard of manifestation? And if you have, what do you really know about it? Because it can be a word, it can be a buzz thing right now where it's very trendy, it's very popular. What are you manifesting? But how good are you at creating your own reality? And today we have a very special guest, Kat Kozad, who is a life coach and host of the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. I am so excited to introduce you all to Kat, who is here today to dive into this with us. So thank you for joining us on the show. And I am very excited for this conversation.
Yay, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Melissa.
You're welcome. So I would love to know, how in the world did you get into manifestation? And if you could share a little bit about your story and just where this all kind of came from and what you've actually manifested as well, because I think it's important to kind of show the whole picture too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we're taking it back to where this all actually began, for all of us, it starts in childhood. And for me personally, my childhood growing up, I was raised in a home of addiction. My dad was very addicted to alcohol, and my mom was not a citizen of the United States. So in order to stay in the States and raise me and my brother, she had to tolerate some really toxic things in order to do that. And because of that, it created a sense of like lack of safety inside of my home. And because of that lack of safety, I didn't feel safe inside of myself, which then growing up manifested as me being overweight, being severely bullied for being overweight as a kid, just going through so many challenges, is not really liking myself or trusting myself growing up. And all of that felt very unmanageable as a teenager until I got to the place where drugs and alcohol were introduced into my life. And so I turned to drugs and alcohol and partying to kind of numb everything out. And while it worked for a short period of time and it was fun for a short period of time, it wasn't something that was like long lasting and sustainable. And so as I got into my early 20s, I went as hard as I could into working, into trying to make as much money as I possibly could. Another like sort of escape to disconnect from what I was experiencing inside of myself. And really, I got to this place where I was so unhappy with myself, so unhappy with my life and what was going on internally. but didn't know what to do with it. So I decided to move across state lines for the first time ever in 2019. And I was in a completely new place thinking it was going to be a fresh start for me. But little did I know that all of those problems, all of those traumas that I experienced from growing up were actually going to follow me, and that I wasn't going to have all of my old comforts from where I grew up, which was in Colorado. And so all of these traumas just really were amplified. And I found myself at my rock bottom position where I was $70,000 in debt, working 60 plus hours a week in a job that I absolutely hated, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling so completely hopeless inside of myself, so anxious, so lost, and really didn't want my life to go forward anymore. But in that rock bottom moment, so synchronistically, I was introduced to intentional manifestation. And I had been going to traditional therapy for years and years. None of traditional therapy was really working for me. There were bits and pieces that like made sense, but it kind of felt like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. And when I was introduced to the concepts of intentional manifestation and healing work, inner work, all of that, my life started to change so drastically, so quickly. So kind of like a timeline on that, June of 2019 was when I hit my rock bottom. By September of 2019, my life felt drastically different, which then by the end of 2019, my life was a completely different ballgame because of the practices of intentional manifestation. And so I just started to share about it on my Instagram, started to share the growth that I was experiencing. And so many people were so interested in the message that I had to share and started to ask me to help them with it. And so I started my coaching business in January of 2020. We are now, almost July of 2023. And in the span of that time, I went from, like I said, my rock bottom to now owning a multiple six-figure business, being able to heal from just so much trauma, create complete safety, trust, faith inside of myself, love for myself, moved to New York City, which has been my dream city since the age of 14, travel all around the world, do it in style, and coach over 300 women. And the reason I share that is because I really want people to know that, like, I'm just a normal girl. Like, I come from a cow town in Colorado. I'm no one special. There's nothing that qualifies me to be able to manifest my dream life over anybody else. And like you said in the beginning of this podcast episode, sometimes we just need it to be broken down for us in a very tangible way that makes sense and cuts the fluff and takes the bullshit away from it. And that's what I'm here to do, is help people really understand how they can have this no bullshit approach to living the life that they actually want to live for themselves.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And I love how you just wrapped all that up into this like no bullshit, like tangible piece, because how often are we hearing things online or wherever it may be that it just hold the energy and, are you a match for it or not? And what do you need to do to, if you don't have it yet, then there's a block. Like, it's like we're kind of told and taught, I found at least, to fix something, or okay, maybe we're not doing something right. But I think sometimes our brain really does just want steps. We want something tangible. We want something we can wrap our mind around, of like, oh, okay. And I think you've obviously created that practice or that method, or just sharing it in a way that it resonates with people. It's not something way out there outside of myself. So can you share a little bit more about like what this intentional like manifestation, like what that is or what that looks like?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing I want to say on what you just said is, like, of course, for so many people, manifestation feels like so foreign, or feels like it's something that's not attainable to them, because we are given these very like unrealistic or vague perceptions of like what it means and how we're supposed to do it. And it's like, if you're at your rock bottom or you're somewhere that you don't want to be, and somebody's telling you, well, think about your dream life, like become the vibrational match for your dream life. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? Like,
Yes.
how am I supposed to get there?
Story of my life the last 3 years, by the way. And yes, continue. I was like, what the hell are you trying to tell me?
Totally. Like, when somebody first said that to me, I was like, what? And that's like my curiosity of this. Like, I feel so grateful for the fact that I essentially was in my rock bottom position, because it felt like I had no other option than to like go as deep into this as I possibly could to try and figure it out. And through that, have done a lot of that. I'm not here to say that I know the laws of the universe and know everything, how it's going to play out perfectly, but definitely have seen so much through my own experience and through the hundreds of women that I've been able to help. But so when it comes to intentional manifestation, the reason that I say intentional is because whether people are aware of it or not, they're manifesting on a daily basis. So everything in our realities is a manifestation of our thoughts and of our subconscious mind. And we can all take a look around, wherever somebody who's listening to this is. It's like you can look around at your life, what you're doing for work, the people that are a part of your life, your relationship with yourself, your finances, whatever it may be, and recognize that that is a manifestation of your belief system that you currently hold about yourself and about your life. And the way that that starts to change is through intentional manifestation and intention itself, which is being able to create this level of awareness for whatever it is that is happening right now, because that's a really important part, is identifying, okay, like what is working, what isn't, what created this, because we can't change inside of ourselves what we're not willing to recognize. So creating this awareness of like what currently is, what is currently happening, and also this intention for what do I want, and what do I want to start to create shifts inside of myself, mentally, emotionally, and energetically, as well as physically, to help me get into the place where that feels a bit more tangible, where that feels like a bit more doable. And one of the things that I love to teach to my clients is what I like to call the ladder of believability, where it's like, okay, so if you're at the bottom of the ladder, again, say you're at your rock bottom position, or you're very unhappy in your current circumstances, or whatever it may be, wherever you're starting out is the bottom of the ladder. Most manifestation coaches will tell you, okay, like get to the top of the ladder. Like, what's the dream life? What's the vision? What's the thing that you want for yourself? But there's so many pegs along the ladder to help you get to that top step. And each one of these pegs is so necessary for you to be able to get there, because each one holds lessons, each one you need to integrate to be able to actually sustain the life that you get at the top of the ladder. So what I like to teach is like, okay, a step up from where you are right now. Maybe it feels like a bit of a stretch. Maybe it's going to require you to step out of your comfort zone in a way that you never have before, but what feels at least doable? Because in order to get to that dream life, we have to create safety for ourselves every single step of the way. And if there isn't that safety, and like, okay, what is the next step up from here? What is creating like the alarm bells or the alerts that are going off that's saying that this isn't safe, then that's where you can start to bring your focus and attention into working on creating safety around those things, so that you're able to take those steps up and gradually get to the place where you have the dream life.
Ooh, that's so good. Because I think, and I'm such a visionary, and I know a lot of people are, where we think so big picture. And then that gap of where we are right now is so far from where we want to be, that I think that can even cause more, like you said, the dysregulation, the lack of safety, the how the hell am I ever supposed to get there? Like, I spent more years of my life than I'd like to admit being like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And you're telling me to enjoy the journey and, like trust the process. And I'm like, F all of this. This is terrible. And like, how am I supposed to get there? So I love that you're breaking it down. And I say that on the podcast all the time. Like, what is the first step to make it happen? Like, we got to bring it back, is what I'm hearing, to like a tangible, bite-sized next step piece that doesn't need to be going from $70,000 in debt, like you said, to a multimillionaire tomorrow. Like that, like I think we almost get unrealistic. Like that's kind of what I'm hearing. Like we're getting unrealistic because we think we're just supposed to focus on this like big vision and that's going to somehow solve our problems. But like to me, it sounds like we're not looking at like, no, actually, like, what do we need to like get out of survival mode like right now? Is that kind of
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you say that, because I think that a lot of the times people have this misconception with manifestation that it's like, if they're not shooting for the stars, if they're not getting stupidly delusional with whatever their vision is that they're wanting to create for themselves, then they're not going to get that. Because it's almost like they have this mentality of like, okay, the universe is giving me one shot at this. And if I don't say that this is exactly what I want in the dream life, then I'm not going to have that. When in reality, it's like, again, like we've been saying, it's like, okay, what's going to allow me to feel regulated inside of my body? What's going to feel safe enough to my nervous system, safe enough to my subconscious mind, that's going to take me out of survival? Because once you're out of survival, then you open up so many more doors of opportunity for you. And then once that has happened, even more doors arrive in front of you, as opposed to feeling as though it's like, yeah, okay, one shot to get to where I want to be. That's just not realistic. And like, am I about things not being realistic? Absolutely. The life that I've created for myself over the past 3.5 years, not realistic whatsoever. Like the amount of change and the amount of abundance that I've manifested into my life in the past 3 years on paper doesn't look realistic, but because I've been willing to take it from this approach of like, okay, like radical honesty, radical responsibility for where I'm at right now. And like the things that, again, truly just do not feel good, the things that are uncomfortable, the ways that I'm showing up and getting in my own way, whatever it may be, or facing those traumas, facing those things from the past that I've been burying down, for me with drugs and alcohol, but for somebody else, maybe with comparing themselves to other people or food or whatever it may be. Being able to recognize those things, because those are the things that are your gateway into the next level of your life. And so when people ask me, like, where does someone even get started with an intentional manifestation journey? It's like, before you even create the vision of like what it is that you want, it's like, yeah, that's always nice to have. And like, you absolutely can do it simultaneously with this first step, but it's getting honest with yourself of where you're at right now, what isn't working, what in your belief system, what narrative, what behaviors, what actions do you hold on a daily basis that is creating what you have right now? Because if you don't start to address those things, no matter what you manifest into your life, you likely will sabotage or mess up somehow, because it doesn't have space in the current reality of the way that you're showing up.
So I'm almost hearing in that too, like instead of going to fix and searching for answers outside of yourself and, okay, what do I need to do? And we kind of talked about this before earlier today about like, okay, what program do I need? What coach do I need? Like, what do I need to do to fix something or help me get there? I actually like, I think it's so important what you just said is like, hold on, before you start going to do all that, why don't we take a moment to like really check in with ourselves and like really reflect and really go there and like pay attention? Because I do think I don't know if you're into human design, but like I'm a manifesting generator and like we love to skip steps, right? Like we just are like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Got it. Like I'm going to go hire everybody to help me. And it's like, whoa, let's take a minute and just like check in if this is even like, are we even looking at the real issues here right now? And I've heard you say something before of like, you manifest who you are, not what you want. And that was another one where I was like, oh, okay, hold on a second. Like what, again, like my mind wants to go like, okay, so what's wrong with me? Like, what am I doing wrong? Instead of like, just, yeah. So can you talk about that a little bit? Cause I feel like that really has been my default that I'm realizing right now where I'm like, whoa, how often do I go there? Like, that's not
Yeah.
helpful either.
Absolutely. So two things come up for me on this one. First is that I think that one of the most common narratives that exists because of the online coaching industry and other like things that were being presented online is that like, if something's not working, you are the issue. And I think that that is a sometimes beneficial narrative to run with, but majority of the time it's not. Because when we look at ourselves as something to fix or something to change or somebody who's not inherently good enough as they are to create what they want out of their lives, then again, subconsciously, we're not going to feel safe enough to do anything about that. Because if we see ourselves as the problem, then in some sort of way, we find safety inside of that, even though consciously that may not make sense to us. On a subconscious level, there's some sort of like positive association with that, where then people continue to play out that narrative like, well, things aren't working out in my life because I'm the problem. So really starting to come to this place of, like you said, it's like, absolutely, before you go out and change and look like who do I need to hire, or where do I need to move? I'm pointing my finger outwards. People on the podcast can't see me doing this, but pointing my finger outwards, like looking at the external reality and pointing and being like, okay, what out here needs to change? And the reality is like turning this finger back around at yourself and saying, okay, like, what parts of myself am I not accepting? What parts of myself am I projecting outwards onto other circumstances? Where in my belief system am I doubting myself, or whatever it may be? Because it's not necessarily about like you needing to fix yourself, you needing to change yourself. It's more so about like creating this level of acceptance and love and compassion for yourself, so that once you're there, you have the opportunity to change, or you have the opportunity to shift and do something that feels more supportive to you, as opposed to seeing yourself as like this project, this never ending project. Because I think that that's where, like we were talking about earlier, is like we can get wrapped up into this, like, okay, then who else do I need to hire? Like, who else needs to help me fix myself? Who needs to do this and that? As opposed to like really coming to this place of like, I am not this never ending project that I need to see as a never ending project to continue to work on. What I can actually do is come to this place of like, okay, like love, compassion, acceptance for myself and for my current circumstances, so that there's even the space in the first place to start to create that shift.
I have so many emotions coming up right now, because I just feel like for anyone else who's like listening and been there, because I know I'm not alone in this, of like the self responsibility, the ownership. And I, through NLP, like I realized like I'm such a literal listener and I take things so literally and personally. So when I hear people talking about, whether I've been in business relationships, I've been in, the online space, whatever it is, where like, what's your DNA in this? Where can you take ownership and responsibility? And just everything you said felt like this like release, like hug of just like, no, it's not that I'm this never ending problem that I need to keep fixing because something's wrong with me. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. Like, that just really hit. So thank you for sharing that, because I think we don't even realize it's happening. And like, that's been part of my journey. And I joke, entrepreneurship, I mean, you want to talk about the inner work and a self-love journey and things coming up for you, like start your own business, launch something, like it'll all come up loud and clear of like
start a business or get into a relationship. Those are the two ways. If you want to have every single trauma, limiting belief, or whatever it is, smack you right back in the face, do one of those things.
Yeah. So would you say get in a relationship or
start a business?
Start a business. I agree wholeheartedly with that one. It's just me, my life journey has been the business. The business is going to bring up everything and show me. And I think that's part of it. And part of like my story too is realizing, hold on a second, like nothing's actually wrong. I'm out of alignment. I'm not listening to myself. I'm not, again, I'm not doing something right, but like in a way, in a positive of like, wait, maybe I'm following other people's rules instead of getting clear on what my rules are, or I'm joining some program because they're going to help me get some result, when in reality, are like, we've both been through it, where it's like, did they really tell us anything that we didn't already know and we weren't already doing? So why did we need to hire them to tell us that? Like, that doesn't even, looking back, it's easy to see like, well, that didn't make sense. But I think it's all like this beautiful journey and reminder to like come back to ourselves and like, sit with that, even if it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And that's like, so over the past 3.5 years of coaching, I've primarily worked with women. And one of the things that I love to see so clearly from not only my own experience, but working with 300 plus women, is that we have all of the answers already inside of our bodies. But given like today's day and age, like modern society, what we're taught to value versus not value as a woman, the majority of us are so disconnected from our bodies, which leads us to think that we need something external from ourselves to quote unquote fix us. When in reality, it's like women are the most intuitive, like nurturing human beings, like creatures on planet Earth. And therefore, it's like, why would we not already know what we need? Like, that is literally what we are biologically made to do, is show up and like know based off on our body signals, like what we need out of this life. And so being able to really come back to that inside of yourself as a woman who's listening to this podcast, and to anybody who like resonates with the feminine energy, it's like being able to reconnect to that inside of yourself. Because like you said, it's like both of us, yeah, hindsight, we can look back and be like, oh, I already knew that, but we didn't trust ourselves in that very moment of like, oh, okay, this is what my body totally knows. And I'm going to slow myself down enough right now to question, like, do I actually need these things that people are telling me that I need? Or is this a problem that needs to be fixed? Or do I actually just need to return home to myself, slow down, get closer to my body's wants and needs, and honor whatever that may look like, whether it be like, yeah, hiring the person down the road, or like really just trusting yourself for a season and seeing that even if you quote unquote mess up, even if there's messy moments, even if there's things that like feel uncomfortable and you don't necessarily know how to navigate, that you can trust yourself that because you are connected to your body's wants and needs, you will find a way through it.
So good. And there's something in that too that I would love for you to go a little bit like deeper on is I'm all about like taking action, do something. We're taught that, right? You don't like your situation, do something about it. You don't have the results you want, go hire somebody. Like we're all kind of taught and programmed. I'm realizing now, like, do something about it. And when it comes to manifestation, I know there's a lot of talk out there of like I call it inspired action, right? Like you still need to like take action, but I guess what is that fine line between, like you said, coming back and like, we didn't really need those things, but of course it brought us lessons and it brought us further in our journey and self-discovery. And I love what you said, like coming back to like that deeper trust. But what is that fine line, would you say, at least in intentional manifestation, with like that taking action piece and doing something, but making sure it's from a pure place, making sure it's not too like maybe before you check in with yourself, like what is that?
Absolutely. Incredible question. So the way that I like to decipher this and the way that I like to coach my clients on this is like, is the action coming from the energy of force? Is it coming from the energy of control, from scarcity, from fear, from lack, from need, from any of those energies of like, oh, well, if I don't do this, then this won't happen, versus the energy of like, okay, like this feels inspired. This feels true to me. This feels expansive. This feels like it is coming from like a heart-centered space or from like my body's true wants and needs. And I think the only way that we can really get close to that is by slowing ourselves down. And again, kind of like you said, it's like we're so conditioned, especially in America, but I know around the world as well. It's like, oh, something's not working, do something. Go do, versus be. Like allow yourself to be, allow yourself to sit, allow yourself to just exist. And through that existence, really hear the messages that are coming up of like, okay, is me choosing to take the step forward with this? Let's take, for example, like, let's talk about investing in a coach, because I think that like that's what we were talking about prior to hopping on this podcast episode. It's like, for anybody who's listening to this podcast, you're probably in the world of personal development. You've probably heard every single personal development person out there tell you need to hire a coach. And it's like, before hiring that coach, allow yourself to sit, to be, to exist, to see how it lands inside of your physical body, how you feel. Do you feel safe? Do you feel expansive? Do you feel like you need to do it? You have to do it. You're scared, whatever it is. And based off of that, it's like, okay, then choosing to take your step forward. If it's coming from this heart aligned, pure place, like you said, it may feel intimidating. It may feel scary, but it's also probably going to feel expansive. And it's going to feel like a, fuck yes, I know I need to do this inside of your body, versus past circumstances like I was sharing with you before we hopped on, where it was like, I thought that I needed to invest in a coach because I was sold this idea that if I didn't continue to invest in myself, then I wasn't going to continue to grow. So it's like two very different energies in that of like, I have to do this in order to continue to grow, versus like, I choose to do this because I want to grow. And being able to, like I said, slow yourself down into those situations, into those decisions, and truly know that like you're allowed to take your time with it. You're allowed to sit with it. You don't have to make a game time decision on what it is that you think you need to do or somebody's telling you you need to do. You're allowed to take your time with these decisions. And the more that you do, the more that you can get in tune with your body, which will help you get in tune with your intuition, which will help you make those decisions that are coming from a heart aligned place.
And I even just, you saying all of that, I was like, oh, it's looking for like that external result instead of doing something because it actually lights you up and you love it. We're doing it for you first. And yeah, there's so much in this that you said that is just like, oh my goodness, how often are we doing that? And we are sold it. We are programmed, and just having a moment to slow down long enough to realize like, hold on a second, am I doing this because I think I need it to get something?
Yep.
Or am I doing this because I'm genuinely lit up and excited about it? And it sounds fun and expansive, and maybe it's scary, but it's also kind of like that hell yes feeling of like, and if you're not getting that hell yes feeling, like listen to it. And I just went through this too with like, I do have a coach and support, and I am learning like what I actually need with that coach, with that support, whatever it is. But it's listening of like, if there's something that feels off or it's triggering something in you or you're feeling it, it just listen to that. And that was the other piece you brought up too, where I also realized like, it's that scarcity lack mindset that is so prevalent in sales that there needs to be urgency. And if you don't do it now, the price is going up. If you don't do it now, you're going to miss out. And I've had a serious reaction to that where I'm like, stop. Like I get sales psychology. I understand. I sold real estate for 14 years, for crying out loud. Like I understand there are some things that are part of sales and a part of the process. But I think that's where I've actually had a really hard time in like this coaching online space. Everyone's promoting like scarcity and urgency, and there has to be a cart open, cart closed. Otherwise people aren't going to do anything. And I think that is a difference with real estate. Is with real estate, like, sure, there's some urgency, but like, I'm not going to convince you to go buy a house today if like, that's not part of your like,
agenda, what you actually want to do.
There's no convincing you to do something. Whereas I think we get hooked into this, like, oh gosh, but if I don't do it now, I'm going to spend more later and I need it. And if like you said, if I'm not investing in myself, then I'm not growing and I got to get in the room. And it's just, yeah, there's just, it's exhausting. It really is.
I think it's really cool. I've seen recently, like there's been, at least in like a lot of the people that I like surround myself with and like connect with online, is this like shift in the narrative surrounding all of that. And like for me as well, is like I used to operate from this place of saying to people like, well, if you don't get in today, then like there's not going to be a spot available for you. And it's like, fuck that. Like, yeah, there is. Like, that's a lie. There absolutely is. And like when you're ready, I'm ready. Because especially again, when we're operating from trusting the body, it's like maybe that person just needs 24 hours to sit with themselves and trust themselves. And I think it says more about a coach to be able to sit in that level of integrity that they trust that when somebody's ready to come on board and be a part of their program, that they absolutely will, then that's like a superpower, versus the coach that doesn't trust that that person's going to get in their program once they get off the call with them. It's like, again, turn the finger back around. If you are that coach, turn the finger back around. Why do you not trust that your ideal clients, the people who are supposed to work with you, are absolutely going to show up in your life when they are ready to? And allow yourself to sit with that piece of like, why do you need that level of control? Or like, what do you feel as though you cannot trust in that experience to continue to get what you want and need from it?
And I've heard you talk about this too before. I think you just brought up so beautifully. And it's like the timeline. And like, do we trust the timeline? We want instant gratification. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I feel like when we talk about manifestation and creating our reality, I do think, me especially, I call it out, like, I forget that it can take time. We're becoming a different version of ourselves in order to have the life we want, right? This being energy, you even saying it, I was like, yep, that's the journey I'm on right now, is
Yeah.
doing it to being and wrapping my mind around, okay, but be what? What do I need to do to be, right? Like, it's a whole thing. It's a whole process to slow down like that. So can you
Yeah.
talk about like that? Yeah, that wanting that instant gratification and the timeline, and like, what if it took a couple years? Does that mean anything's bad or wrong? Or like, how do we trust that even more? And yeah.
Absolutely. Incredible question. So, first thing that comes up for me on this, and this is the belief that, like, number one belief that I have for my life, which is that best case scenario is the inevitable of my life. And I put that as like forefront overarching belief of my life, because that means that everything that happens underneath that is happening for me. It's happening the way that it's supposed to. It's happening in the time that it's supposed to. And I can really surrender this level of trust to the universe, to God, spirit, source, whatever it is for anybody who's listening, that the lessons, the things that come up are actually happening exactly as I need them to. Does that mean that there aren't moments where I'm like, where the fuck is my husband? Why is he not here yet? Like, come on, boy, I'm ready for you. No, because there's absolutely moments like that. But to your point and to this is like, so I think that one of the most major things that can really happen within this is two things. One, first is being able to recognize, like, the reason we get so attached to the timeline is because we don't feel as though we are good enough or that our lives are good enough without it. And so what part of us feels as though we're lacking from it? And I can see from my own experience and all of the women that I've coached is that, like, it's not actually like a thing that we are lacking, but an emotional need inside of ourselves that we're not meeting. So it's like, if we think that our life is going to get significantly better once we're making more money, what emotional need isn't being met inside of that? And I can imagine for most of the people listening is like, they think that their life is going to be significantly better when they have more money, because that means they're going to feel safer. That means they're going to feel more secure. That means they're going to have more freedom to do what they want. And so really identifying that inside of that, okay, I'm projecting that my life is going to be better when I have more money because there's some part of me that doesn't feel safe, secure, or like I have freedom. So how can I show up for myself right now to show myself that level of safety, security, and freedom? And looking to create and like cultivate experiences on a daily basis to be able to give yourself those things, because truly that's how you create this non-attachment to whatever it is that you're wanting to manifest into your life. Which then if we take it back to like what we're taught about manifestation time and time again, which is that like let it go piece, is like letting go the outcome of it, allowing it to come when it's ready, like having that non-attachment to it. And non-attachment, like I said, truly does come from this place of like, if my emotional needs are already met right now, like I'm good, like I'm fine. I'm wanting these things because subconsciously I think they're going to make me feel a certain way. So me showing up right now and allowing myself to have that experience, that is what I see as like the bridge between doing and being. Where it's like, oftentimes we're doing because we think that this thing is going to make our lives significantly better. Whereas when we can step into, okay, I'm already going to be that, like I'm going to be in the energy of safety, security, freedom, love, whatever it may be, right here and right now, I actually feel pretty good. Like I could be good with or without it, and therefore become the clear channel to really start to receive that in your life, if that makes sense.
That is the most practical, like I so on brand, like no BS way of like saying it, that I just, something clicked even for me, and that I am going to listen to that many more times. I recommend you all do too, because that's huge. And I think we hear let go, trust, surrender. I mean, I've been saying that for the last year with my own health journey and everything going on, like surrender, let go, release control, right? And it's like, okay, yes, I think I am, but I feel like you just put such a tangible, practical spin on it. of what is that, which is like the real root of the issue, which is what I'm obsessed with finding out in the first place, which is what is like the real emotional need. And I've said it before, like it's the essence, not the form. And even that, I'm like, okay, but what does that like really mean? Right? Like,
Totally.
but I feel like you just gave the answer of like, it's figuring out what you think you're going to get by having it, what emotional need is not being met right now, and how can we meet that need in the moment instead of thinking it's going to happen someday, which we know that's not how it works either. So I love that you just broke that down into something where my brain even is like, oh,
Yeah.
it's releasing attachment. Like I get it. So thank you.
Absolutely, 100%. And just one more example for like all of the listeners, even for me, like I said, this is a journey and experience for me always. And it's an active decision for us to continually come back to this place of like identifying what those emotional needs are inside of ourselves. It's not like we do it once and then we're fixed, we're good, done for life, and you can move forward. It is this active decision within it. So like I said, for me, I'm in the position right now where it's like, I really want to manifest a partner. Like I've manifested the money, I've manifested the freedom, I've manifested all of these things that I thought were the most important thing for the longest time. And I'm so glad that I have been able to, but now it's like, none of these things mean anything if you don't have people to share it with. And so even this morning I woke up and I had kind of like this like sad, sulky feeling inside of myself. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to feel so much better. Like when I manifest that man into my life, like, where is he? All of the things. And then I stopped myself and I was like, okay, what emotional need is it being met right now? And it's like the emotion that I was experiencing was loneliness. And so I brought my ass down to the co-working space where I currently am recording this podcast. And it's like, I have so many friends here. I have people that I have made incredible connections with. And so I could have allowed myself to remain in that energy, but instead I texted my best friend that I work down here with. I was like, do you want a coffee? Brought him a coffee, come hang out with him, started to talk to everybody here. I've been able to hop on this podcast episode with you and chat with you. And it's like, wow, this is the connection that I was looking for. This is what my emotional needed. And by giving it to myself, I'm now back into the space where like, he's going to come when he's ready to come. Like the universe is going to align me with that person when I'm fully ready for that person. And if there's other experiences that need to happen before then and now, awesome. But I know how to tend to myself in this moment.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I can tell you just personally, and I believe other people will benefit from this as well. I feel like you just saved me from so many future spirals of like, I'm craving that connection. I need to join another thing. I need to do another thing. Cause mine does show up in business, right? Like it absolutely does. Like I got to achieve more so that I can spend more money on things and do these things. And it's like, you just gave something so easy and tangible to say, hold on a second. What emotional need is lacking right now? And for me, I feel like a big one is that loneliness connection, but like in the friend space, right? And it's like, hold on a second. What can I do to reach out to somebody? What can I do to connect? What can I do to get out of my own space? And I think especially if you work from home and you're an entrepreneur, it can be very lonely. It can be very isolating if you don't have a community, if you don't have friends even going through it. You know, my husband works a real like normal job, like most people around me do. And so I'm like, oh, they're working right now. Like they're not around to like have a conversation at 12 o'clock. Like that's so weird.
Yeah. What? Why?
Why not? Like you can't just step out and like go take a phone call. I don't understand. I've never had a corporate job in my life for the record. So I have no rules.
Me either.
Yeah. So I love this so much. And I just want to thank you for going there and like sharing this, because I think it's so important and it's needed. And we don't realize we're even doing it. And that's the thing. I thought it was one and done. I learned this. I should know, like that was a big one for me. I should know better. I know this already. I have all these certifications in education. Like I know this by now, but even you just said like, we're human. Like we get caught up in like, well, when I have this, then, and I just did an episode on this, like someday then I'll be happy, then I'll be at peace, then I'll be satisfied. Right. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. So thank you for giving something tangible and a tool to be like, oh, wait a second. what am I really craving right now? Let me go satisfy that in like a different way.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%. It's like everything that we think we want externally, we tie some sort of emotion to it. So instead of being like, oh my God, like when can I get the thing? It really is. It's like bring it back to like, what do I think that thing is going to bring me?
So good. I feel like that's probably the perfect place to end because I'm like, I need to like sit with that. But before we do, is there anything else you do want to end with, share, whether it is alignment and manifestation or, just anything else that you feel like is important to discuss? Because I know we could talk all day if the opportunity was there. Yeah.
Um, awesome question. I'd say that like for anybody who's listening, I just want to reiterate kind of what I said at the beginning, which is the fact that if you've been led to believe by any sort of resource that manifestation isn't accessible to you or that your dream life isn't something that you're capable of creating and you've tried everything underneath the sun when it comes to manifestation, there are people out there, such as myself, or resources out there that absolutely can help you do this. And it's probably going to feel very counterintuitive to the way that you've approached it from the past, but what you've done in the past hasn't necessarily gotten you the result that you want. So allow yourself to stay open to it because, like I said, we're manifesting every single day, regardless of whether you're aware of that or not. It's not just when you open up your notebook or say that affirmation or do the visualization or whatever it may be. It's every single moment of every single day. So know that you already have this inherent power. There's just a different approach that can help you get to what you want.
So good. Thank you, Kat, for being here. Where can people find you, learn more, listen to your own show? I know you have your own programs too, but yeah, what else or where can people find you?
Absolutely. So best places to find me are over on Instagram, which is at Kat Kozad Coaching. I'm sure you'll put the spelling of that in the show notes.
Yep.
Cool. And the other place that you can get the most value from me for free is the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. I release a podcast episode a week, and I think I have like 140 episodes or something like that you can go binge. I have had people that have completely changed their lives just from listening to the podcast. So if you're looking to like kickstart your manifestation journey in a very no bullshit kind of way, definitely check out the podcast.
And I personally have been binging it lately and it's amazing and highly recommend. And I love that you give so much value even in just the podcast. Like that's what it's really all about. So yeah. Thank you again so much for this conversation. I am personally taking so much away from it and just appreciate you. And I just am so excited that you got to share this with everyone too.
Thank you.